And let's see. It says we're live. Just let me double check this. Sometimes it's hard to... Oh, wait. All right, there we go. I see stuff playing here. It looks like we are live, gentlemen. Hey there, and welcome everyone to tonight's episode of the Xbox Roundtable Podcast. This is show number 310, your favorite place for Xbox talk, banter, and more from around the gaming sphere. I am Invader, and as per usual, I am looking forward to get into things. I mean, when am I not really, right? And, you know, initially I had planned a giant catch-up show with all the topics we had missed over the past week or so. By the way, I'm sorry about that. There was something very expected on my end that happened, and I had to deal with that the past week and a bit. I even had the show all ready to go, but hey, that's life. It just kind of throws you curveballs all the time. But hey, we are back. And yeah, you know, there was a wide topic list up until Xbox decided to drop some pretty big news. Obviously, we'll be covering the Bethesda Studios shutting down a few of them. You know, we'll give you all our takes on the situation, plus maybe some talk on Xbox Mobile Store that got announced as well. We'll see. But yeah, some spicy stuff coming up for sure. Before heading into things, however, let me introduce the crew tonight, starting with DotzRTS. Dots, how you been?
I've been good. It's been a hot minute since we've gathered together, so I'm happy that we're back here Sunday night, always the best night. And yeah, no, I've been keeping busy. As I'm sure Crusader will attest to, is we've been playing with the fire that Bungie's been cooking with Destiny 2. Getting into some of that stuff. We actually had like an actual good raid session the other day with some of the new content called Pantheon. That was a lot of fun, a lot of good rewards. Outside of that, I've been playing V Rising. They just had their 1.0 release, so they're finally out of early access. Great game, really fun if you're into like the Diablo-esque, you know, combat style, but then it's like a crafting gatherer. You can build a castle, you know, become your own vampire lord. And speaking of vampires, I've also been playing a lot of Vampire Survivors because I was at a graduation recently, and I didn't have any internet, and so my girlfriend handed me her phone and was like, "Yeah, these are the games I have that don't have internet because I can see you're bored," and I was very bored. And so I played Vampire Survivors on her phone. And I'm like, "Damn, this is actually fun!" And so I bought everything on Steam and been playing it on my computer now for the full experience. And so I just got yelled at for playing it for the first time ever. But yeah, no, I've been having a lot of fun, and it's been a good time.
Nice. Well, I mean, hey, you can't help it. I mean, technically that was her fault that got you addicted to that, right? So...
Yeah, it's the same reason I'm addicted to Warhammer and Destiny and all that stuff. It's all her fault, obviously.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Interesting.
No, that's complete BS. That is
not true.
My fault. I am the one at fault here. I am the problem.
I'm gonna play that loop just so you know. I am the problem.
I am the problem. And actually in Warhammer news, I finally got a full Necron kill team built up and ready and painted, so
nice.
I'm actually going to start doing kill team stuff, since that's a little bit more easier to manage and play than the full like combat patrol and everything above that. But I'm still working. I still got many minis to paint, and then at some point I gotta beat out the general with my own knight at some point. So
good luck.
I'm gonna need it. Good lord, that what you did was beautiful, though. A lot of props on that.
Thanks, appreciate it.
Yeah, so all good on the RTS end. Actually, I think tomorrow, Homeworld 3 is coming out. It might be tomorrow, the next day. Homeworld 3 is getting their release, so that's a big RTS on the docket. in that regard. Beyond that, I think I played a little Manor Lords recently. Had some good times with that. Yeah, so no, I'm a bucket of positivity right now until we actually get into the topics, and then that positivity will be disappearing.
Oh, it's
But yeah.
okay. My positivity went low once I saw the new Tau codec, so, I hear it.
Oh no! I feel like I've heard that with like almost every codex that's released for 10th edition. Like
Yeah.
Necron codex came out, everyone got upset because they got rid of not Illuminator Ceres, Nemasar, Zadric,
Oh, I guess so, yeah.
and then the orc. I think the orc players are happy though,
Yes,
from what
the
I've
orcs,
heard.
the orc
But
players.
the Custodes players aren't, even though now they have female Custodes. So what do they have to complain about?
Canon, maybe?
What's canon anymore? It's all a Zinch ploy every time.
No comment.
Anyway, away from that, all's good on my front.
Okay.
Glad to be here.
Happy to hear. It moves it up. All right. Since I saw the General pop in, General, what's shaking?
Pretty good gaming this week. The game you gave me the other time, Fear 3, beat that.
Ooh.
Finally beat the trilogy. And I'm also just deep into Persona 3 Reload. That's a long game. I'm just chipping away at that. It's a fantastic game. I'm so glad Xbox finally got it on their platform. I played Persona 5 last year on Game Pass. Now I'm playing this one. It's just so similar, so good. I highly recommend it.
All right. Good stuff, my friend. Yeah. Glad you're having a good time with all that. Eric Shockley, buddy. Hey, how's things been at your end?
Pretty good. Didn't get to play too much last weekend because, well, if anyone else was paying attention to the whole Drake and Kendrick Lamar fiasco that kept you up late at night, waiting for a new song. Oh, sorry.
On whose side are you on?
Oh, it's definitely Kendrick. It's already over.
That's my dude. Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, that was fun. But yeah, back to getting into. I still need to finish Resident Evil 4. I'm close to the end, so I just, for whatever reason, I think it was Diablo came out, and that's when I couldn't finish Dead Space and Resident Evil 4 because I got pushed to the back burner. But since I've been kind of off Diablo 4 for a bit, just trying to finish some of those survival horrors. But sad we might not get Dead Space 2 remake, but hopefully that gets put back on the docket. But yeah, ready to get into these topics. Microsoft gave us a good show today. Ready to get started.
Yeah, good show for the wrong reasons. You got it. Okay, who do we got up next? The Crusader, the Destiny man. How you been?
I have been in Destiny. That has been my existence for 3 weeks now. I've also been yelling at Dots for just starting to play Vampire Survivors.
That's cool. I yell at Dots, so it's fine. Whatever.
I don't think I've ever heard you yell, Invader. I don't know if I can follow up on that agreeance.
A hypothetical yell, yes.
I have been playing a lot of Destiny. When Xbox announced the news, I got real sad that night. So what did I do? I just went into the Xbox LFG. Anyone use the Xbox LFG besides Dots and I?
Yeah.
You guys did the built-in.
It's good for. It was good for
Finder?
Outriders.
It's really, 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 really good for Destiny for doing content. And I decided that I was gonna at least pay it back to the Xbox community a little bit. And I started doing teaching and carries. And I think I did 3 Ghosts of the Deep dungeons. I did a bunch of Whisper of the Worm, Exotic Quest runs. I was just carrying people through content, and teaching them how to build builds and things like that. And I've been having a good time the past week or so doing that.
All right, that's pretty cool. Yeah, that's right. We were talking about before the show, and no, I'm glad. Destiny's been treating you good. That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, and who we got here? Grimes. Grimes, what's new and exciting?
What's up? I missed you guys. So happy to be back. Also, happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there. Gaming wise, I've just been playing a Harold Halibut, and I have to agree with you, Invader, of how slow it is. I really like it, but it's so damn slow. Even the running is slow. So imagine that. But the characters and story are so interesting. Yeah. So I'm having a good time playing that game. It's not perfect. It's got a lot of those issues with the animations and stuff like that, but it's understandable. It's a small studio and it's their first game, but I'm having a good time. Also, I have to say Crusader and Dots were right about Diablo 4. It gets to a point where it's just not fun anymore. I got to level 90 in tier 4, and it just hasn't been fun since I got to level 70. It's so boring. The loot is awful. I hardly ever get better gear than I already have, and the dungeons are easy, even at higher levels. I was gonna try holding off until next week, for when the new update comes, but am I really gonna play that game again? Probably not. So I deleted it. But next, I'm just gonna jump into Jedi Survivor, which is on Game Pass right now, and I'm also looking forward to the new Commandos game, which is coming out very soon, I believe. I actually still have the installation disc for the first Commandos game, Behind Enemy Lines. I believe it came out in 98. Classic game. One of my favorite games from growing up. So looking forward to playing that and talking about what happened during the week.
For sure.
It was very quiet. It was a very quiet week. Also, I have to ask you, what's that game you have on screen? I've never seen it before.
It's a Warhammer game. It's a Warhammer 40k game.
Shoota's Blood and Teeth.
Oh wow, it looks really cool.
It is. I think it's done by the same studio that did Guns, Gore, and Cannoli, if I'm not mistaken.
And it's on Xbox?
Yeah, it's on Xbox. I played it on PlayStation, but yeah, it's for Xbox as well.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's got a cool art style, and actually it's a pretty good game overall. If you like side-scrollers, humor, it doesn't take itself too seriously.
The only negative I've heard about it is the multiplayer's a bit janky, but that's like the worst thing I've heard about it.
That, and I mean, you can probably get through it within like 5 hours, something like that. It's not a very long game either, to be honest.
It reminds me of that old school RoboCop game for like Nintendo. Like, was it SNES or?
Oh yeah.
I forget. Like like the 2D RoboCop from like the early 90s.
I mean, I have RoboCop versus Terminator. That was awesome back in the day. But yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, it's just a good like platformer, side-scroller shooter. Again, it's a lot of fun. A lot of cool weapons, good humor, animation's pretty good. It's just fun. It's just fun. And it doesn't take itself too seriously, but it still maintains stuff pretty well. So, yeah, overall, pretty good game. All right, guys, naturally, before we begin here, just a quick reminder to smash the like button and share out the show to get more eyes in here. I'd love to see more awesome people like Gene in the chat. Hey, Gene, thanks for joining us. But yeah, guys, gentlemen, why don't we get into the big news from earlier this week? Earlier, we got news from Xbox that they would be closing 3 Bethesda game studios and merging another. The ones in question that are closing are Arkane Austin, Alpha Dog Studios, and Tango Gameworks, with Roundhouse Games getting merged into Zenimax Online Studios, if I'm not mistaken. Obviously, a lot of people have been all taken back by this move, especially when you look at the names, right? But, maybe we shouldn't be so surprised. Maybe, I'm just putting that out there. But, again, we'll dive into things. And I'm very curious what everyone here has to share. Now, Eric, I'll start with you. I'll admit that I didn't see this on my radar heading into the game showcase season, but hey, we got surprises. What are your thoughts on Xbox releasing this news now, and just your own general reaction to things?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of sucks that for the studios that it happened to. Obviously we've seen studios get shut down when they shut down Lionhead. You wouldn't think hey, it's one of their core studios they had. But when you look at it, what was that studio after Peter Molyneux left, and who was left there to really, carry on? Well, plus at that time they were probably an afterthought for Microsoft. So, but yeah, I mean, it sucks that I think it's just kind of bad timing for the studios that it kind of got chosen. That probably played a big role, it sounds like, because those two were not in between a project. Also, those two studios, their last games have not sold. It has nothing to do with Game Pass, which I saw that so many people, whether it be what was it, Last Stand Media, or pretty much anybody, saying that this is why Game Pass isn't sustainable. Well, the only thing that was really on there day one for Game Pass, which was Redfall, but Game Pass was only going to help people touch that game. So Game Pass had nothing to do with what that turned into. Plus, that was already a game that, unfortunately, devs at maybe not the higher ups, but other devs wanted Microsoft. They're hoping to cancel, but unfortunately, if the higher ups at the studio, don't relay that, if that's not their thinking, then Microsoft wanted to leave them hands off, like they've done for a lot of studios, like Double Fine. It's worked out great for them. But in some scenarios, it may not with Redfall. So they might need to keep a tighter. Not tighter leash, but more of a watchful eye of just making sure everything's going.
Just to add on to that, Eric,
oh yeah, go ahead.
The thing with Redfall and Arkane was, I don't think that it was. I mean, okay, they went through with the project, but I think it was Zenimax. Zenimax had a lot to say with a bunch of their projects going back a few years. They're the ones that wanted a lot of online stuff. Look at Fallout 76, right?
Yeah. And also Prey, because Prey was actually supposed to be done. It was a completely different game. It was more, I guess, supposed to be closer related to the original Prey. But that studio, I forget their name.
Human Head.
Human Head, yeah, that's right.
They're now Roundhouse, I believe.
Yeah, and so they got, kind of shafted, and then Bethesda just, gave it to Arkane, which they made a great game that not many people touched. So unfortunately, just like with some of the Evil Within, I think Evil Within, maybe the first one did okay. The second one, I don't think sold all too well. And then they moved on to another IP that didn't also sell well. So it was already kind of, everybody's saying they acquired these studios, and it was worse off for them to acquire them. Look, they're just shutting them down. So, but I'm like, obviously Bethesda was not in the greatest situation. Obviously, that's why they were starting to shop even Arkane Leon, or Arkane Lion, whatever. Even them that are still available. Not Austin, but the other one that made Deathloop, made Dishonored 2, and is making Blade. They had to shop their game for being a time exclusive, just like Ghostwire Tokyo with Tango, because their previous games, Dishonored 2, I don't think sold all too well, or what they were projected. I don't think it outsold the first one.
The original Dishonored did pretty well, but
yeah, it was a hit. Yeah, the original one.
Mm-hmm.
The second one, I don't think did all too well.
The Outsider didn't do well. 2 did great.
Yeah. Oh, okay. 2 did great.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. I don't think it outsold the.
It didn't outsell the first one, but it did just fine.
Okay.
Like it didn't. It wasn't like a flop or anything.
Gotcha. But who knows how close or how much more they sold over like their original like budget. Like, so maybe it probably broke even, but maybe it did enough for a profit. But heck, Square hates when they they hate their Tomb Raider series, and you saw what they had to do and get all of that off the books. Even though all of those have what we've seen and think have done great financially, but who knows what their books look like. But either way, there's a reason Bethesda was starting to shop those studios. Why can't they? You would think, okay, they have strong ties with Microsoft. They're gonna release their games on Microsoft simultaneously. They don't need to even, ask about taking a money bag. You don't see Capcom doing that really for pretty much any of their big hits. Why? Because they sell. So obviously, when people are saying like, they're going to shut down these studios, and I'm like, if these studios had no fear of that, they like Double Fine, when people were sharing that video today, saying like, oh, look at all their faces because they're worried about how what could change if they join with Microsoft. I'm like, well, obviously, if they're employing about the or taking into account, hey, if we do this, so why are they even if they're super financially stable, obviously they weren't. They had to do a Kickstarter for their to fund Psychonauts 2. So like if obviously they wanted that financial stability, and you do give up a few things when doing that, and we all see it worked out for the better, despite whatever people were sharing that video to kind of throw a cloud over like, oh, this is big bad corporation. Okay, that's every corporation. You've seen Sony shut down some of their most beloved studios, like Japan Studio, that made some of those quirky games that they've kind of missed for a while. Like the Shadow Colossus and things like that. So, I mean, both have had to shut down some of their beloved studios. But I think some of the just talk is getting out of hand, where it's like, Obsidian, I'm praying for Ninja Theory. They're they're probably going to get shut down. No one's going to buy this game, or no one's going to play it. And first off, you don't have to worry about with Game Pass. It's not so much the game has to focus on selling. They are obviously pushing Game Pass super hard, so it's not like they're just having Game Pass on the side and they're like, hey, it's there for our fans and we have it as a perk, but we're not pushing it because we still want you to buy it. Obviously, if they see that, whether it's probably a split of, hey, it sold well, and there's a lot of people playing it on Game Pass, or vice versa, everybody's playing it on Game Pass. If they can see that, wow, half our subscribers are playing Hellblade, then they know that Game Pass money, that subscription for those months, is heavily Hellblade's the reason. Kind of like when you have a HBO subscription and everybody's tuning in, or like Amazon Prime, everybody's tuning in to watch The Boys, big show. So you can see what's drawing those subscriptions and what's not, and that's why like certain shows get canceled after the first season, because no one was watching it, despite how it could be great. It could be, Hi-Fi Rush, which Game Pass I'm sure did not, wonders for, because it was a polarizing game with, how to play it. Even people that, were sad to see Tango get shut down, some of them were the same people that also said, oh, I don't like this gameplay because it's just a rhythm game and I can't get it's not my cup of tea. So things like a game like that was Game Pass definitely helped, but a lot of those other games like Ghostwire Tokyo that still I don't think did all too set the world on fire, and I don't think sold particularly well. But that was not a Game Pass. Sure, it went into Game Pass when it eventually hit the Xbox, but I'm guessing it probably didn't do all too hot, even though it was exclusive to PlayStation. because obviously even if they are making the decision of which studios to shut down because they had to make this move, whether it be because of Microsoft and if they had made it off that decision, and they've kind of seen that with Redfall, like obviously maybe they were stretched thin, and they did take on, not everybody was let go. Some of those people would be going to some of the other studios because they would still use some of those, talented devs that they could use to, help resources and offer positions. Maybe, the other Arkane or maybe, other studios that are, regionally, would make sense for them to move to, or maybe they could do remote work. But I think it's just bad timing with some of this particular studios. Obviously, if it was just Arkane Austin, and I don't know, pick another studio that wasn't everybody's favorite, then I think it's just because it's Tango that it's just kind of hitting harder because Hi-Fi Rush was a hit, and there's a lot of evil within fans. There's a lot of people that are hoping that maybe a third one got announced.
Well, that, and it was Xbox's only Japanese studio, which was, again, it was supposed to be a kind of like a beacon, right?
I'm hearing Shinji Mikami, when he left, that he took a lot of the talent from that studio. He didn't?
No,
that was a fake rumor.
Oh, okay.
Shut down by people at Tango. He hasn't founded a new studio yet.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, I'm sure that also probably played into it as well. If Shinji Mikami was still there, they may have still kept it, even though he hasn't technically directed it. He's kind of the head and probably helps with part of the vision of, where they go to next with some of their projects. So I'm sure that probably played, kind of like when Lionhead got shut down.
Which,
no
remember,
Peter Molyneux
said was a mistake.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, they also have to answer to higher ups. So, and a lot of people are blaming on ABK. I don't think that's really it at all, because people are saying they have to recoup that cost. I'm like, it's not like they just lost the $70 billion or $69 billion. It's like when you buy a house, I didn't lose, all my money that I put in, for my down payment. It's just, it got transferred to an asset. So I don't think that's it at all. Plus, it's gonna start paying dividends with Call of Duty, and they're still waiting on that investment. So I don't think that really was a factor. But I think they just needed to make sure some of these. They've seen what happened with Redfall. That was a huge black mark. Whether whoever's fault you want to put it on, Phil, the studio, whatever. So I'm sure maybe that probably had. And also quality control. So maybe Satya is probably looking at, it's probably not all in Phil's decision right now, but the higher ups are probably looking at, okay, we're fully behind this. We're fully behind Xbox and gaming. So now we're paying attention, and okay, maybe this will be good for their quality control going forward. Maybe because they won't be as, because you got to think about it. They did buy Bethesda as a whole. It wasn't I think that's what people are kind of getting mixed up with some of their earlier studios they had, like when they got Double Fine. They specifically sought out those studios. They specifically chose those studios. They didn't technically choose Tango. I think that was kind of just a plus. Hey, we're buying Bethesda, and we have a good relationship with Todd Howard and a lot of the other studios there. But I think that was just kind of a plus. Hey, we get a Japanese studio there too, and we get Shinji Mikami. So I think that was kind of just something as a perk, cherry on top that, they acquired. So, but again, those two studios weren't like ones that were setting, they weren't particularly, their games weren't selling all super great. So, at the end of the day, people were saying, well, they should have shut down 343. And I'm like, that makes no sense, because even if you don't like their games, people had gripes with certain games. Guess what? Halo 5 still sold. Halo 5 still made money. So same with Halo 4. Same with Halo Infinite. People are still playing the crap out of their multiplayer.
No, they are not. The numbers are the lowest they've ever been. It's awful.
I mean, enough. I'm just saying, financially, it did well. It did better than what financially the studios they shut down. But So people saying to shut down 343 is just
Well,
you might as well then just kill Xbox if you shut down 343.
343's already had their culling. That's the thing.
Yeah, who's going to take up Halo? Everybody keeps saying ID, and ID's doing their own thing. You don't want to just make Halo just Doom. The people that love Halo are at 343, are making Halo. Yeah, I mean, sure, you might not like the vision, but blame Bungie, because they did this. They did the whole thing where they did Halo Reach, which pissed off the Halo fans. The original creators pissed off everybody. And guess what? Halo 4 just went further with that vision. So it's like, that whole thing, just telling them to, shut down the studio, probably their almost longest tenured studio other than like Turn 10 now. But that would just be ridiculous versus, so I get, it sucks that they made this decision and they felt they had to. It sucks when Sony's done it. It sucks when, any of this happens, but it's not going to be the last studio that probably either of them close down. And it's same thing with any publisher, EA, whether it be Ubisoft. But we've seen good stuff from the ABK deal. Look at Toys for Bob. They got their independence. And guess what? They're not making Call of Duty anymore. So now we can get those games back. So there's pluses and, minuses to it. It's not all bad. And, so I'm not going to doom and gloom and like, okay, it's over. Like, there's a lot of people just saying I'm not buying Xbox and not supporting. And I'm just like, we're still in a way better situation, just so that's understood, like, from where we were, like, 5-6 years ago, before they even started buying up these studios. So, or even when they bought the initial 5 or 6 they had. We're still in a better situation because they're going to still have more content coming to the Xbox. We're not going to have Sony potentially doing what they were about to do and grab everything and totally screw the Xbox platform like they're kind of trying to do with the whole, Square, with the Final Fantasy. So had Microsoft not stepped in and started either, sure, they could have done the same deals. Yeah, sure. They would have had to throw a ton of more money and for no ownership. So Microsoft probably wasn't going to let that fly. So it is what it is. But, Sony's going to keep doing that. They're doing with, Square, and I'm sure they'll probably try to do it with others where they're like, hey, we're just going to try to take Call of Duty away. They'll probably try to take, if they could, GTA away. So I don't know. It's just you got to it's not all bad right now, and it sucks that that's the studio that, because I'm sure if everybody was like, oh, it's just Arkane Austin, I bet most people would have not said a thing. They would have said, like, that sucks and this is kind of bad. I think it's just Tango was the one that, because they did have a critically acclaimed game that recently released. They did get awards, but it is what it is.
Yeah, and I know other guys are probably going to comment on some comments by some Xbox higher-ups regarding, like, again...
Oh, yeah, we are.
I know. So I'm going to save that for you guys. I'm not going to touch on that a lot. That being said, I mean... Yeah, Hi-Fi Rush, I liked it. I didn't complete it, I'll admit, but it was a cute game. I was more of the Evil Within kind of a guy when it came to Tango, and... Yeah, it was good. It was good. I honestly don't know how it sold. I don't think it lit the world on fire.
And the plus side is they still own the IP, so down the line, they could still find a dev of fans, just like they did with other studios, that people that loved Killer Instinct that came back and made the best Killer Instinct game ever. So, there's still that option. So some of those IP that are still beloved, like Hi-Fi Rush, I'm sure we'll find a new Ori, even though Moon Studios might not ever make it again. Like they're not completely dead. Those have value for sure. So hopefully we'll see those aren't dead, and it sucks, and hopefully all those people that didn't get rolled into other studios, find success elsewhere and are already on their feet or have open options. So.
No. Well said, Shockley. Well thought out points there, and I thought you did a really, really excellent job. Just kind of again highlighting your thoughts. Very good. I know all the guys want to jump in here. I'll get to Grimez next, and then GeneralMLD. Grimez again. You heard Shockley just kind of leading us off here. Obviously, you have opinions on this. Again, what's your reaction to these studios closing and then one getting merged? You know, I mean, it's not the only one that's been happening the past like couple of months, couple of years. It's kind of sucked for studios and devs to say the least. But again, what's your reaction to all this with these Bethesda Studios?
And I don't think it's going to be the last time we hear about this. And I think we're going to see more layoffs, unfortunately. But first, I want to say sorry to anyone. Sorry for anyone that lost their jobs, and I hope anyone affected lands on their feet soon enough and finds another studio that can work for. But as a longtime Xbox fan, I've been a fan of Xbox since 2007 when the Xbox 360 came out. I'm lost for words. Completely dumbfounded. The Xbox team worked so hard to gain fans' trust back after the 2013 debacle, and just to lose the trust again in an instant, it's quite shocking. This time it's also different. I don't know if they'll fully regain the trust of millennials and Gen X gamers again. It will be a massive mountain to climb. All those videos of them saying they've learned, as Shock just mentioned, Lionhead, how many times did we hear that they've learned their lesson, they won't repeat it? And it seems quite the opposite, judging by what happened this week. It's such a downer, but here's the thing. I've been saying this for months, that the moment Xbox got in bed with Activision, Microsoft took full control of Xbox. It's honestly very sad, and it's hard to take. I loved Hi-Fi Rush. I mean, we've talked extensively how great the art design is, the characters, the music aspect of it. That shadow drop was such a pleasant surprise. Everyone here was raving about the game, how fun it was. Oh, ages can play that game. I mean, like, parents could play it with their kids. It was a word-to-mouth game, given that there was zero to none marketing for it after it got shadow dropped. And judging from gaming Twitter, it was doing relatively well. I mean, even Greenberg said they were happy with the numbers. And I know we talk about Xbox games going multiplat. Well, Hi-Fi Rush would have most definitely benefited from going to the Switch. Even when it was shadow dropped, they should have released it on Xbox and on the Switch. Microsoft shot themselves on the foot with that one. Just imagine the loads of money it would have made on the Switch. That game was perfect for it. So it's so sad to see it gone. I don't know if I know Microsoft still owns the IP, but I don't know if we'll ever see it ever again. And talking about Evil Within, I have both games, although I never finished either of them. They were proper horror games, at least the first one. And you're right, like they didn't make tons of money because I bought the first one for $10 a few years back. I think maybe a year after it released, it was on sale for $10. And I think it was the same thing for Evil Within 2. Evil Within 2, it's a bit more action orientated, but you know, the first one was it was a proper horror game.
Yes.
The graphics unfortunately have aged quite poorly. I tried to play it recently, and it looked so bad. But
yeah, I remember. The second one though looks a lot better though.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, yeah, but they were good games, you know. So I'm gonna miss them as well. And then, you know, there was also Ghostwire Tokyo. It had potential, and we've been aching for Japanese games taking place in Japan for ages to come on Xbox, and we finally got it. It was a game that had its issues for sure, but it reviewed relatively well on PlayStation because it launched on PlayStation first, and we had to wait for a year for it to come on Xbox. But it was a good game. I enjoyed my time with it, and I love the combat mechanics. It was unique, and but you know, it's not a good look if you're trying to make deals with other studios, let alone Japanese ones, closing your only Japanese studio. Could this be the end of Xbox in Japan? Have they given up on that market completely? I don't know, but I truly hope not. But it's not a good look, and not every Japanese game is for me. But I'm willing to give any game a chance. And all those games that Tango released, I loved every single one of them. I like horror games, but they're not my cup of tea. I still play them and enjoy them. I'm not into melodic sort of games, but Hi-Fi Rush was I mean, such a unique game. I mean, it blew everyone's minds. Everyone said it's one of the best games I've ever played in a while. So to close the studio that made that game is quite baffling. And with Tango, they weren't even given a proper chance under Xbox. Everything they released was developed pre-acquisition, so they should have been given at least one chance.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, just to add on to what you're saying, Grimes, I would have loved to have seen what game they were working on, because you know, Hi-Fi Rush was a small project, right? So they were obviously working on something behind the scenes.
And you know, I think that we're also talking about Ghostwire Tokyo too. They had some ideas for that as well.
Yeah, even if it was a new IP, I mean, I'd be curious. Again, like, I remember when the Bethesda deal, when they first purchased them, the Zenimax Bethesda acquisition, Tango was the big one for me personally. And I agree with what Shockley said. I mean, their games weren't exactly lighting up the world sales-wise, but they did make unique games, and I'm like, oh man, this is cool, that I enjoyed. And it does suck. It does suck to see this studio, their only Japanese studio, get shuttered like that. So I would have liked to have seen them continued with it, but it is what it is, unfortunately.
With the sales thing, why is not Bethesda being blamed for it, or Zenimax? Because it's all about marketing. If you don't market your game well enough, it's gonna suffer. I don't even remember. I mean, I follow games. That's how I heard about Evil Within when it came out. But if I'm just, if I'm an average gamer, I probably wouldn't have known about those games. And also, there's so many other games coming out that you just have to choose what games you're gonna. That's the other aspect, choosing what games you're gonna spend your money on. But that's another, a discussion for another day. With Arkane Austin, I understand the decision, but I don't support it. I followed some of the people working at that studio for years. There are some people there that worked for more than a decade at that studio. Some that started their gaming careers there and don't know anything other than Arkane. MLD and I discussed a few days ago about the story that the majority of Dishonored devs have been long gone, but that's not actually accurate. Sure, some probably moved on to other projects, but half, if not more, of devs at every other studio are contractors. So it's a normal thing to move to other studios. But in the case of Arkane Austin, a big chunk of those developers from the Dishonored days are still at the studio. So it's really sad to see. I know Arkane Austin is not. People are not big fans of them. I don't know why. Is it because of Redfall? I don't know. I mean, before everyone respected them for the Dishonored games. Every developer I talked to, they said they kept telling me how good the Dishonored games were, and I wasn't the biggest fan of the Dishonored games, and I still have massive amounts of respect for what they were trying to achieve, and no one can deny how good their art was. The oil painting like stylized characters, and the writing for the Dishonored games was excellent, and same goes with Prey. I mean, the story for the Prey game was so good, and I don't think anyone expected that, and it suffered from the same things that the Tango games suffered. It barely had any marketing, so that's why it's so poorly. Like, barely anyone talked about Prey, and Prey was so good. This is completely random, but quite a few of the Bethesda games the Microsoft acquisition are on GOG. But if you actually want to own your games and not have them licensed, you know, I would recommend you going to GOG and purchasing them if you're on computer. But I digress. And another thing I want to say, it's like people talk about the failure of Redfall, but here's a scary thought. What if Ninja Theory had been shut down after Bleeding Edge? People forget about that game. But despite being fun and having cool looking characters, it flopped hard. I had my fun with it. And I don't like those sort of games. So I was never gonna stick around with that game on the long run. But even people that enjoy those sort of games didn't stick around for too long. But that game flopped. So if Microsoft was trigger happy with closing studios, we might have never seen Hellblade 2 come to fruition. So go ahead. You wanted to say something, MLD?
Oh, I just wanted to add that that game was like Grounded in that it was a very small 10 to 15 person passion project. So it was one of those risks that were like, say, Grounded paid off,
Yeah.
but this one didn't. But again, like, it's so little payroll that that wouldn't. I wouldn't think that would break the studio, in my opinion.
Yeah, you're right, but like executives, like Microsoft executives, don't care about that. You know,
Yeah, I mean, if they're big play, like Hellblade, yeah, then that's another story. But because it seems like they want either the safe AAA games or small and nimble passion projects.
Yeah.
So feels like they can take risks in that regard, or games like Pentiment.
So let me ask you, what do you think Project Mara will be? That's another, a game that's in development by Ninja Theory. Is that a passion project? What would you consider? I mean, we don't know anything about it, but it's probably going to be a niche sort of game.
The horror game set in an apartment.
Yeah, so it's basically modeled after an apartment. So it's not a big game surface area wise at all. So they went to a place. They did the photogrammetry of it.
Yeah.
And they're basically going to make a horror game based around what is a very small apartment. So again, I would also classify that as a passion project that wouldn't make or break the studio.
So that's going to be like Silent Hill, The Room kind of game, I'm guessing.
Yeah, like I would call it. It's like a borderline tech demo based on how small the game is, in terms of, again, explorable space. It really depends on what they choose to do with it in terms of how they're going to do the horror gameplay angle.
But so what if that game flops and then Microsoft? I hope not. I'm just, But what if that game flops and then Microsoft decides to shut down Ninja Theory? I mean, so that's what we need to be careful with. With that. I mean, like studios should be allowed to release bad games once in a while. It just happens, or like not even a bad game, but even if it's not financial success, it should be allowed. I understand it's gaming. It's a business. Executives are there to make money, but not everything guarantees you success, and it should be okay. You should be able to have at least one off or two. That's the reality of the industry. You don't know what's gonna be a hit, what's gonna be a failure. So the people at top should understand how the gaming industry works I know it's expensive.
Mm-hmm.
It's a billion-dollar business, but it's all about taking risks, in my opinion.
I agree too. The only thing that I would just add to that, Grimes, is I guess you gotta look at the turnaround too, because at least with Ninja Theory, they've had, okay, yeah, Bleeding Edge, it was a dud. Hellblade, I guess we'll find out in a couple of days. And Project Mara, we don't know. We don't know what the release date is. It has been in development for a little while now. But the turnaround's been pretty good. You look at Obsidian. Obsidian's been putting out a few things. What do we have? We had The Outer Worlds. We had Pentiment. Oh yeah, and Grounded too. Grounded. Again, some smaller projects there, but they've been putting out some stuff. I'd actually be more curious with like Compulsion, for example.
Agreed. Yeah.
Because Compulsion, I mean, again, I don't know, guys. I'm just talking, but like, you know, they've been working on their game for what, 8 years, something like that, give or take.
Yeah. Something. Yeah. I forget when Happy Few came out, but right after that, I think they.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I'm just saying, like I understand what you're saying, but I do agree, like some of the longer turnarounds are. You know, like some studios have multiple things going on, whereas some are, you know, singular, right?
Yeah, but here's the other thing with fast turnarounds. Like Obsidian, I mean, I love Obsidian,
Mm-hmm.
everything they make, but can they make a game that looks as hyper realistic as Hellblade 2 in that short amount of time? Probably not. So if you want, like cinematic experiences, that's gonna take time. So, like people, anytime Obsidian has shown gameplay for any of their games, people complain about the graphics or the combat style. So it, but people want them to release games as fast as they can. So one thing has to, you can't, there's a meme that, like, for graphic artists, like your client wants cheap, fast, and quality,
Mhm.
and you can't have all three. But that's with a game development. Something has to give. So if you want really good games, it's gonna take time. If if you want good games but not the best graphics, then that's what Obsidian is. But I mean, and then again, I love Obsidian, and not complaining about them, just saying that. But anyway, I'm gonna move on. But now I'm gonna talk about uh, everyone's favorite people, the Xbox executives.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand all the hate or like towards them, but for people calling for Phil Spencer to resign or to be sacked, I mean fired, be careful for what you wish for. Not only did Phil save Xbox from the brink of extinction back in 2013, but he was instrumental into making Xbox one of Microsoft's most profitable brands. I mean, it makes more money than Windows now. Who would have ever thought that Xbox would make more money than Windows? Of course, with that come some negative side effects which we've seen now. But I promise you, the next person that replaces Phil, if it's not Sarah Bond, which I hope it's Sarah, because she's awesome and hardworking person, and she deserves it. But if it's not her, I guarantee you, it's going to be a corporate CEO. That's more in the lines of Bobby Kotick or EA's CEO or Take-Two's CEO in that line. Or even like the Unity CEO. It's going to be that sort of corporate CEO. After he's gone, I reckon, I reckon this is probably going to be the last year we're going to see Phil anyway. I reckon that after E3 or maybe the beginning of 2025, that's going to be the end of Phil. I mean, he's been for more than a decade with head of Xbox, so it's probably with all the toxicity in the gaming industry, I'm pretty sure he's had it. But this is going to be the last Xbox CEO that actually plays games, and it's unless it's Sarah Bond, but we'll see what happens. The other thing that bothers me and I don't agree with is going after Greenberg for a tweet that he put out. That's how marketing works. And people act as if he's the one making the decisions to close the studios. He has absolutely no say in the matter. And in fact, I'm sure if it were up to him, he would try to keep those studios. He's as big a fan of the brand as we are, and he loves the people that make those games. And going back to Sarah, I know, like, I'm sure I'm not going to touch on that Bloomberg video. Maybe some of you guys will.
I will.
Yeah, he will. I know he will.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I watched it, and I understand people's criticism, complaints about that, but she was just put on a spot, and it's very hard when you're put on the spot what to say. Maybe they, but do you guys really think that she had anything to do with it?
Yes, she's the head of. She's like the second most important person in the division, like in the hierarchy.
Listen, but come on, dude. Only a few.
She was in the room when this was decided. 100%.
I also feel like a person at that elevation should know to expect questions like that, and not
only that. The PR team at Microsoft should have prepared her for that question. She had to have known that was going to come up in this interview.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not disagreeing.
That's a failing on maybe not her specifically, but like the fact that there wasn't like you can tell every other question she's asked in that interview, she's answering them just fine because she was prepared for everything in the interview. But as soon as she's asked that, just watch how she stammers. Watch how she's blinking. Like that's the kind of shit that happens when like you don't know how to respond to something. Like as someone who has horrible social anxiety, this is me. And she was not prepared by the public relations team for, like it truly points to. I don't think that they think that this is a big deal.
Yeah,
or
I mean,
at the time they thought.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely spot on. They don't think it was. But can I just say, like, just a few months ago, she was celebrating Tango's 16th year anniversary, and she posted, "Here's so many more." Something among those lines. I'm not taking all the blame away from her, but it's not like, do you really think that she can say, no, we're not shutting those studios to Satya or Amy? I very much doubt that.
I think that it is a job of an executive of a division to convince the people above them who don't know things about their division of what is correct for their division. Fundamentally, that is their job. Like, literally their job.
But
And if
She
you
was
can't,
overruled. She was overruled. 100%.
and if you
Job or
can't do
not.
it confidently enough, and you can't explain how, and you know, I'll get to this more in my part. I'll get
yeah, I mean, I can't wait to hear. Yeah, I mean, you have every right to believe that, but at the end of the day, Satya and Amy make the decisions, regardless of. This is a Microsoft decision, and Xbox has no power over it. I think Phil is definitely to blame. I'm not taking any blame away from him, but he still doesn't have any power over Satya and Amy. Last thing I just want to say that I just hope smaller studios like Double Fine and Ninja Theory or Compulsion, Obsidian, and InXL don't suffer the same fate. I'm really worried.
I think they're fine for now. We'll see what happens come after the showcase, though.
Yeah.
I'll be very curious.
Yeah, I just don't want to live in a world where everything Xbox releases is live service or Call of Duty. You know, we know those things that Matt Booty said. We want smaller projects that win us awards. Well, Double Fine won multiple awards with Psychonauts 2. And if my memory is correct, it might have also been considered for Game of the Year. That game was saved because of Xbox. And we don't know what the future holds for Double Fine. I keep saying this, but Tim Schafer, it's a brilliant mind, and it would be a travesty to lose him, or him just leaving the gaming industry altogether, because I'm sure it's not easy for him. I mean, the reason he accepted Xbox's offer is because he wanted to focus on making games and not to worry about the financial side of it, which is what Microsoft sort of promised to those studios. They promised financial support and creativity, and it's just sad to see those studios being shut down. Also, I know you mentioned Pentiment. I know it's not everyone's cup of tea, but I love that game, and it's one of my favorite games from, I think it was last year or the year before when it came out. Unique game, a game that makes you feel for the characters, and it's just, I don't want to lose that from Xbox. But so we'll see what happens. I just I don't know if it was a good move to announce those closures so close to the showcase, because it kind of kills the mood for some of us. But I'm not gonna give up on Xbox just yet. Just don't want to see any more closures, studios being shut down, but we'll see what happens.
Agreed. Okay, when we get to some other thoughts here, thanks for that, Grimes. Very in depth, well thought out. GeneralMLD, I'll head to you, and then I'll get to Crusader, and then finally Dots. GeneralMLD, again, you've heard what Shockley and Grimes have had to say. I know you've been probably stewing over your thoughts. Please share with us, what's your reaction to everything that happened.
Oh yeah, I mean, we've had a few days to think it over, process the situation and whatnot. I feel like if Tango wasn't shut down themselves, the reaction would have been a whole lot easier, more understandable even, because people were saying things like, they kept saying 4 studios this, 4 studios that. It's half of Bethesda. And I think that's a little sensationalist, even Xbox tax vibes even, because, I mean, let's be honest here. I wouldn't compare Alpha Dog on the same level as id Software or Roundhouse to Bethesda's main studio that made Starfield or Fallout. So these were clearly like smaller parts of Bethesda that arguably just either had little to no output themselves or just maybe weren't worth the cost going forward. And I'll get into each one in terms of like the reasoning for that. Overall, I think the idea though is that Xbox, now that after ABK, Microsoft is looking at these guys with a microscope now, and Xbox has to be sustainable, and that's what we all want too. We don't like reading the news headlines how or Game Pass isn't sustainable, and all these like silly articles, right? And we all want Xbox to be healthy, and it sucks that we're talking about this like that, but if this gets him to that end goal, then it is what it is, right? So I mean, let's just go through the top here. Alpha Dog, I understand. They make mobile games. They released Mighty Doom. I played that game myself, but I never really stuck with it. I mean, it's okay, but it's just like a meh, average kind of mobile game. So I can kind of see how they just have to just cut that loose. That's not why they bought Bethesda. And with ABK, they have plenty of mobile talent and IPs to draw from now. So this wasn't necessary, in my opinion, because they do say how they want to free up the payroll and resources to make more of what gamers do want. Like, we don't want to wait till 2035 to play the next Fallout. And whatever money can be allocated to making that happen sooner, hey, I'm all for that. Now, then you have Roundhouse. I mean, they've had no output, 0 games. So they are a complete unknown. So they're absorbed into Zenimax Online, and they're making something that actually does bring in people, which is Elder Scrolls Online. And I'm sure when Zenimax announces their new game, I'm sure the Roundhouse guys will help with that as well. So I can see this as an actual, more or less a win with Roundhouse, because now they're doing something that we all know that they'll put their time to good use. So, and Zenimax Online, they require a lot of personnel because they make live service games, and live service games live and die by the content that you put out. If you have a slowdown in output, then people stop playing your game. So this is one thing that most people can justify. And then you got Arkane Austin. Now, I think people more or less shrugged their shoulders and were okay with it. Some fought the decision. I'm on the fence that it was justified. You see, there's 2 studios, Leon and Austin. I always thought these guys were the worst half of the 2. Now, I beat Prey, I beat Redfall, and I also played all of Leon's games too, Dishonored 1, 2, and Deathloop. As much as I liked Prey, we all know the game didn't sell. And so there's that too. It's just hard to kind of talk about like this, because at the end of the day, these people are, the studio shut down. They aren't given a second chance. I get that, but 75% of the Prey guys left. So again, they are a large unknown at this point. Even if I get it, Redfall was not the kind of game they wanted to make. This was like a decision that Zenimax made before Xbox took over. So Xbox takes over, they try to course correct on Redfall, try and tweak it as much as they possibly can. It wasn't good enough. But that said, their next game would take another, 4+ years? And the Prey talent left, so asking them to replicate that lightning in a bottle is a big ask. And even then, a game as great as Prey was, again, it just didn't reach a lot of gamers. So in that regard, I can see that as being justified to cut loose. because I do feel like Leon is where the talent is. People associate Leon with Dishonored, first and foremost, and to a lesser degree Deathloop because it's more recent. And I do think, yeah, that's the team that's making Blade. So overall, Arkane, the spirit of Arkane is largely intact. So there is that. It's not like the whole studio was shut down. So, but of course, what everyone seems to be most upset about, including me, was Tango. In my opinion, Tango should have been downsized. That would have been a lot better for PR purposes, because it does look bad when Xbox says they want a better Japanese presence, and this was their only studio. So optics-wise, there was obviously blowback from this. And it also looks bad when you consider Hi-Fi Rush had a great Metacritic score and it won lots of awards. So those are two very big points that people seem to be latching onto. So it does create a lot of uncertainty with other Xbox studios because, again, Hi-Fi reviewed well, won awards. But yeah, I digress. If I had to rationalize it, I beat all of Tango's games. Evil Within 1 and 2, I beat Ghostwire, and I beat Hi-Fi Rush. But I think, again, we all know none of their games sold well. At least Evil Within 1 did, but that game's 10 years old. Evil Within 2, it didn't sell very well. And Ghostwire Tokyo, that was a year time exclusive on PlayStation. So you cannot blame Xbox gamers for not buying this game. This was in their court as well. All of Tango's games are fully multi-platform on PlayStation. So you can't blame the Xbox gamers for this. It's not all onto us because we played them on Game Pass. PlayStation gamers did not buy these games. So we kind of have to take that into account as well. So, and while Hi-Fi was great critically, we all know it's incredibly niche. And I feel like although it was played by about 3 million gamers, a lot of Game Pass players of the game kind of stopped after the first couple levels. And yeah, I don't blame them. I mean, that's what Game Pass is all about. You try things out that interest you, but if it's not your cup of tea, there's nothing stopping you from, uninstalling the game and moving on to something else. And I get that. It's a rhythm game. It is what it is. So, but not even a PlayStation release could save Hi-Fi Rush. If the game opened really, really great on PlayStation, maybe that could have changed things. I don't know. But I guess whatever small bump it did give, it wasn't going to cut it. And so Xbox execs say that they want more smaller games, and people say that Hi-Fi Rush fits the bill. But then again, I don't think so, because Hi-Fi Rush took 5+ years to make, and it's more of a AA game than a single A game. It's not like say Ori and Will of the Wisps. This is a.
It was the same price. It was $30. Microsoft certainly thinks it is by how they're selling it to us.
It still took 5 years to make, and that's not what they want. It should take 5 years to make a AAA game these days. I think that.
So is that true? Is that necessarily true? Because it had a team of 20 people for the vast majority of its development time. So, is time truly a metric we can use to judge that?
Yes.
Is it really?
Absolutely.
Or is it the budget and the development team you have on it? Not to mention the fact that they spent extra time to make sure that all of the assets they were making would be portable for a future title.
I feel like given its art style, it wasn't a graphically intensive game. This game could have, if this game was made in 2 to 3 years, I could have seen it being justified for a sequel. But if it took 5 years to make it, what looks like a pretty low budget art style kind of game, I can kind of rationalize it from a business point of view. And again, I can't stress this enough. It's a very niche game. As great as it was, again, I beat the game. As great as it was, it's just not something people want to play. It's nice to brag about. Hey, I'm one of the Xbox fans that proudly listed it as part of their bragging list wars of all the Xbox games released in 2023. Hey, it's great for console war bragging, but when it really comes down to it, it was not a popular title. As great as it was, I can't stress that enough. It just wasn't enjoyed by a lot of people. End of the day, that's what matters. Now, I feel like you guys mentioned the Sarah Bond interview. I feel like a little clarity could have been better. It could have went a long way. She clearly was not prepared for that answer. I feel like if you could explain that Tango was now a shell of their former self, they're not in a position to make a big game like Evil Within 3 anymore, right? Maybe they're not in a position to transition to a small, agile, 1 to 2 year dev cycle kind of studio. Maybe if you said something like that, but the fact that she gave a non-answer, it just put fuel onto the fire. So again, while Tango hurts the most, in my opinion, that could have been something that Xbox could have maybe downsized on. Because again, they want purely for optics wise, they want a bigger presence in Japan. This kind of helps them with that. They could have maybe helped them transition and say like, we want you to make 1 to 2 year dev cycle games from now on. How can you help? How can you make this happen? If you need help, how can we help you? But I think this leads into my next point here. A lot of people have been echoing this statement too. IGN ran an article about this. It feels like Microsoft took over. All executive quotes, the Aaron Greenberg marketing quote about how Hi-Fi Rush hit all metrics, how it was a runaway success, all quotes like that mean absolutely nothing right now. Absolutely nothing. If you list some kind of Phil Spencer quote or Aaron Greenberg quote from 1-2 years ago, it means absolutely nothing right now, because now after ABK, Microsoft took the wheel. I firmly believe that. Phil Spencer, Sarah Bond, they're literally just right now anyway, I feel like they're just along for the ride. Right now, they're technically the bosses of Xbox, but right now they're answering to their bosses at Microsoft. Because now we all know Xbox is now on the same level as Windows, and apparently Xbox is just bleeding payroll, bleeding money, and Microsoft can't have that. Even though they're profiting so much, every division has to be self-sustainable. And again, as a consumer, I can understand that, right? We all want Xbox to be sustainable. So for the moment, anyway, I feel like Phil Spencer, Sarah Bond, their negotiation, they're not speaking from a place of negotiation power at all. Right now, they're being told what to do, and they're being given marching orders.
I mean, now, I do wish, not to interrupt MLD, I just want to add that, I do agree though that, maybe the teams should have been a little better prepped, for answering the questions, so to speak, right?
Of course. Yeah. Frankly, I don't think they should have taken an interview at all, unless you were prepared to be transparent as to why Tango didn't fit the bill going forward.
The interview was pre-scheduled. It had nothing to do with this. The interview was specifically about the mobile store. They pre-scheduled it and just didn't cancel it, and just because they thought nothing was wrong.
And yet the question was still asked. And if they knew that there was a possibility of Tango being brought up, she shouldn't have agreed, or they should have vetted the questions beforehand. Because of that, just either bad prep, one way or another, But it looks bad now, but I look at it this way: even after all Xbox is cut, just look at what they own now, right? Like compared to say 2018, when they only had 5 developers. Imagine everything they own publishers now, guys. In the 360 gen, like their best Xbox generation, in my opinion, we would never have thought they would literally own Call of Duty, right? So they own so much. They own so many IPs right now. Even if they have to trim some of the fat, what is left is still a massive net positive for Xbox. I mean, we'll have to keep remember that. Again, job cuts aside, which sucks, Xbox is still the biggest it's ever been. Now, people do say how Double Fine or Ninja Theory are in trouble. I disagree. It depends entirely on how they transition going forward after their current games. I feel like after Hellblade 2, Ninja Theory might be expected to have smaller dev cycles going forward. So I think they'll speed up development on Project Mara and whatnot. So I feel like if Microsoft, they want results right now. So again, unless you're making a safe AAA game, they want you making fast, smaller games. And if these smaller teams can do that, I feel like they'll be just fine. Now, we just gotta wait for Hellblade 2 marketing to kick in. I feel like the game's gonna be a hit. It's gonna be better than the first game in every way. I can't wait to play it. But I think Ninja Theory is fine. They were bought because they have a niche of just making like these artsy yet really photorealistic games. So they're doing what they've been bought for. Now, I do think that any studio that wasn't efficient with their time and arguably wasting years of payroll, those are the most likely to get axed. People say the Xbox Studios cuts are next, and if I were to guess, I would say the Initiative and Undead Labs, maybe Compulsion, are on the chopping block. Because the Initiative, I feel like that was, I mean, it sucks because I love Perfect Dark back in the day on the N64. But these guys were created from the ground up in 2018, and it's been 6 years, and you're hearing rumors that they have nothing to show for it. Like, what's going on here? So, and then you have Undead Labs. They made State of Decay 2 in 2017, 2018, and same thing. We know next to nothing about the game, about their sequel. Hopefully we'll see it at the June showcase. But I just feel like Undead Labs, again, they're just wasting time and resources chasing these dead ends of a development cycle. I don't get it. And Compulsion, I don't want to get into this whole thing though, but like I feel like that game has just been made in development for, again, far too long. There was rumors that the development cycle was altered and rocky since they acquired Sweet Baby Inc. as a consultant. Again, I don't want to get into that, but that might also be its own can of worms if people don't buy the game because of them being associated with that. That's a whole other thing. But that might result in them being closed down as well. So Xbox, they were a little too hands-off, giving a little too much freedom in the last 5 years, I'd say. I mean, on paper, it's a fantastic reasoning. You want developers to be creative. You don't want to be watching over their shoulder. You want them to make their best game. I get that. But I think now we're seeing how they have to strike a happy middle because, again, there's developers now that have been making games for 6+ years, and we still don't know much about them. And something's got to change now. Like Xbox, Microsoft, they want results. So, I mean, all that said, though, it's not like this is restricted to just Xbox. I mean, we've seen closures all around. Sony isn't immune either. They closed 3 devs themselves and canceled numerous games, games that we know of like Factions or games that are behind the scenes that we never knew about. And they're the market leader. Like, remember that, guys. I feel like people are giving Xbox a hard time, even though they're the ones with less market share, but Sony, the market leader, those 3 developers, same number as Xbox. Again, I'm not counting the one that was absorbed into Zenimax. That actually kind of makes sense to me. So both sides actually closed 3 developers each. But it feels like Sony got more of a pass than Xbox is getting now.
Because they didn't close down a studio that was an award winner literally last year. That's the difference.
People like Japan.
The
People like
difference.
Japan studios. They like Japan studios just fine, and that was closed down.
That was closed down 4 years ago.
Also, one bought
This
a publisher.
generation, though. This generation.
You know,
Yeah, no one cares. It's 4 years ago.
This generation, you can argue, though.
But listen,
cares?
Microsoft bought a publisher.
You gotta prove the point, though, right there. They each closed down 3 developers. One was developed. Japan was beloved by Sony. Tango was beloved by Xbox. But yet Sony gets the pass.
Well,
Like,
also,
come on.
Microsoft's the one that just spent, in the last 6 years, $80-ish billion acquiring Zenimax, ABK, and the entire slew of others.
Right. And, so
And
went
now
on
they're
their own
closing
free
down
will.
studios in bulk. They're basically Embracer Group. Like,
Well,
But
they
that-
bought things. They bought things in bulk, but that doesn't mean they wanted everything that came with it.
But that's the thing, though. Embracer Group, again, I mean, we didn't get a chance to cover it, but Embracer Group, I don't want to say imploding, but definitely splintering.
no, it straight up imploded. It's 3 separate companies now.
You know,
They bought too much too fast with no output to show for it. So their payroll was insanely high. At least with Xbox, they bought money makers like Call of Duty and Call of Duty Mobile, like all the Blizzard stuff. Candy Crush. they bought money-making profit machines. Embracer Group, they bought IPs and a lot of developers to pay for, but nothing to really show for it. So there's a big difference there. So, I don't know. So going back to, I'm going to close this off here. I feel like Hellblade coming out pretty soon. I think it's going to get like a solid Metacritic in the 80s. We're going to get the June showcase. Right, Xbox, I think they're going to make the June showcase as good as it can be to kind of counter all this bad PR. So, I mean, I think we heard rumors that a new Doom is going to be announced. That'll go a ways to, get people excited about Xbox again. So, Xbox, they're here to stay, and they're still a powerhouse with all they own. And end of the day. So, I mean, I said it before, they're on the road to sustainability, no matter the cost. I personally don't like how they're getting there myself. Again, I can rationalize the 3 out of the 4. Tango, again, should have been downsized, but I mean, yeah, they should have been more transparent as to why it was closed, but I feel like that was a missed opportunity for their part. Tango does have potential as a developer. But that said, if I gotta put on my business cap right now, they weren't a moneymaker. Their games reviewed well, they won lots of awards, but Tango was a money pit. End of day. Sucks to say, but that was just the reality. So yeah, that's it. Hopefully.
So I did want to say, are we on the side of Microsoft shouldn't have bought Bethesda? Because I don't know if Tango or Austin still doesn't get shut down anyway.
Yeah, I am personally at this point.
Well, I mean, so if Redfall comes out under Bethesda, they still survive? I don't think so.
I don't know. I can't see that future, but I can see the reality I live in right now.
Well, and I don't think they survive under a publisher that was struggling versus a multi-billion-dollar publisher. I'm just saying, I don't think there's a reason why they couldn't do multiplat day one. So they were already decreasing, saying, "Hey, dude, this ain't working. We're gonna give you another shot. We're gonna sign a deal with Sony. If that don't work out, maybe we might need to make some cuts, just like every major publisher has done, just like EA, just with like they did with Visceral, like ABK has done with all their studios, like every major third-party publisher has done. So likely they would have done the same thing as every other publisher, Ubisoft, EA.
Thank you.
I'm just saying.
It's good you said that because they were clearly struggling before. The reason they were bought because they were struggling. They were resorting to timed deals with PlayStation to keep afloat. They made developers make games that they were not good at. Like, again, the only game that was salvaged was Fallout 76. Wolfenstein Youngblood flopped. Redfall flopped. Like, they pivoted because they were losing so much money. So think about it this way. Who knows what would have been cut if Xbox didn't buy them? So Xbox bought them for the mainline talent that we know of. It's software, machine games, but mostly the Bethesda mainline studios. Fallout, Elder Scrolls, Starfield. Those are the big names that are now Xbox property. When the Fallout games got a resurgence in sales from the Fallout TV show, that was an Xbox win. People say, oh yeah, but Xbox has nothing to do with them. They own them. You buy Fallout 4 now these days, Xbox gets the biggest cut. When Fallout games were the biggest, they took up more space on the PlayStation charts than PlayStation-owned games. That's an Xbox win. And that's why they bought Bethesda. End of day.
Correct. I know, Crusader, you've been waiting patiently to get in here, so again, I want to hear your thoughts on this. Again, please express, what's up. How do you react to this?
Yeah, so I'm not going to be as loud as I was on The Fix. If you want my really loud, really up close to when it happened take, you can go watch the latest episode of The Fix with Infinite Umbra and Daniel McGee. I am going to quote some of the things that we had in that discussion in this. I have a nice little outline in front of me with all of my notes and data. So background on me with Tango. Tango, I was literally knew nothing about Tango until Microsoft bought them. I knew nothing about them. And I played Hi-Fi Rush, and it jumped into my top 10 games of all time. I love it that much. It is one of my favorite games I've ever played. I recommend it to literally everyone who will listen to me. Just had a friend who's a PlayStation-only gamer. She purchased it, and she fucking loved it. And when the news broke, she was just sending stuff. She knows nothing about Xbox, nothing about them, and she's like, what the fuck? Just all the headlines sending to me like, what the fuck is going on here? And that was basically me too, because I was so upset I could spit last week. It would be the equivalent if PlayStation closed down Insomniac for me, or if EA shut down BioWare, or if Microsoft decided to close down Bethesda Game Studios proper. That is how I feel about this. I like Hi-Fi Rush that much, and I also very much enjoyed Ghostwire Tokyo. Not in my top 10 or 25 games, but really, really thought that was a very freaking cool game. I am a Microsoft shareholder. I own Microsoft stock. I don't know if anyone else does on this panel, but I do. And we are all stakeholders in Microsoft, whether or not we're shareholders, because anything Microsoft does that could impact our digital libraries or anything like that is also tied to this. I really don't care about the business side of this at all in this aspect, because I want more games to play, and I want to buy games. I want to play games on Game Pass. So you're not going to catch me defending any of the business practices at all. I don't care, because I don't. And one thing that we definitively said, and every one of us agreed on the fixed, is that whatever the cost savings was for closing Tango, and even to a lesser extent Arkane Austin, legitimately do not outweigh the cost it's going to take to rebuild Microsoft's brand image from this, from many facets, and I'll go into all of them. But just the straight up closing of an award-winning studio that won awards last year, and not doing these closings based on meritocracy, but simply because they didn't have games in a pipeline, that's going to cost their brand image, not just from consumers, but also from developers within at the studios that they have, because they're not going to feel like they have job safety, because it doesn't matter how good the games they make are. It matters what kind of games they're making, which was not fundamentally true to the ethos when they were purchased. And also just simply, do they have a game in development? So if they're not a studio that is set up for multi-pronged development and they go from one thing to another, they better be worrying every time that they're about that the quarters roll over, because they better be concerned if they're going to get closed. And the first thing I want to talk about is how much I actually, and I can't believe no one has brought this up, but because no one on this panel really likes Matt Booty. One thing I've gathered from the 2 years being on here, like when they promoted him, everyone was like, okay, sure.
Well, I think we all knew that you would have some things to say, so we wanted you to discuss
I don't know how you can fail upwards this fast, because everything we're talking about, when we talk about like X, Y, or Z game, like MLD brought up, having development troubles at Xbox Game Studios, like basically all of them actually in the last like 5 years, right? All of them have had extended dev periods where like things didn't work, like 343 with Halo. The Initiative's initial before they pulled in Crystal Dynamics, Compulsion, Undead Labs, right? They all have one thing in common. It's that the person that's like supposed to be the general manager of all of them and like the head of publishing and basically making sure that like everything's going smoothly across all of the studios, Matt Booty, was asleep at the wheel. The man couldn't fail upwards faster. And my brother in Christ had the audacity to say the line, we had too little peanut butter spread over too much bread in his email. My brother in Christ, you are the peanut butter. Why did you not, expand your production teams? Like why did you not expand your producers and your publishing unit when you knew you were buying an $8 billion studio, all of the studios you bought at, Zenimax, all the studios you bought before that, all, Activision Blizzard. My brother in Christ, you're the person who's in charge of that. How did you not? And you have the audacity to say in emails, well, we're going to spend PlayStation out of the business, right? Like the SpongeBob alternating caps thing. You obviously weren't prepared to actually to do anything once that money was spent, which is like the exact reason why wealthy companies going in and buying things is a problem, because sometimes they just buy them to shutter things so that their competition can't get them, and that's fucked. Also, we need smaller games. It was 20 devs for most of the time in Japan. And anyone who knows anything about the yen right now knows that the yen is at its worst point in the last 80 years compared to the US dollar. And Japanese devs are already paid less than American devs. And the $30 price, it was a AA game. It was a small game. There's legitimately no debating that. Maybe he wants smaller games than that. Maybe he wants the Boletaros and the Vampire Survivors. But I don't know how you can win as many games as Hi-Fi Rush did and not be considered a extremely important thing to hold on to for the brand. Again, all of the brand image that they are facing right now, it goes directly in conjunction with how successful this studio was for Microsoft last year. They said it was successful for all expectations last year, like literally every expectation. So I can't imagine why they would choose it and not one of Bethesda Game Studios' satellite locations that don't really do a whole lot of success, or things like that. It's baffling. And my brother in Christ spelled, or not, I shouldn't say spelled, he named a Roundhouse and Alpha Dog wrong in his email. To the all staff email that went out to all 25,000 Xbox employees to announce that they were closing these studios. The email that caused the story to be broken, right? Not spelled, named them wrong. I believe he said it was Roundhouse Studios or Roundhouse Games and Alpha Dog Studios when it's the reverse. You can't even show the devs the common courtesy out the door to get the company, the subsidiary that they work at, named correctly in the email that's letting them know that they're fired. And overall, yeah, fuck Matt Booty. I don't understand how he is still employed. I'm not gonna call for. I was really angry the night it came out, and you said lay off Phil Spencer and Matt Booty. I actually rescind the Phil Spencer stuff. Phil's done a lot of good, and he's let a lot of things slip through the cracks while he's been managing Xbox. But I cannot believe that Matt Booty is still at that company. The man just doesn't seem to know how to do his job.
I mean, I will agree with you that it is perplexing. There are a lot of questions to ask with regards to, again, dev times and so on. I mean, I do completely agree with you because that has been brought up, and especially when you look at Xbox's portfolio, right? They say that they want to have games in every quarter and so on, but they still haven't reached such targets, and it's been a while, right? And who's looking over certain divisions, and of course Matt Booty, correct? So
yeah, so Xbox failed 3 of these 4 studios. I don't know enough about Alpha Dog Studios to even want to defend them. I can't imagine why they didn't just move the subsidiary and roll them into whatchamacallit, to at least give their technology to what'd you say?
Candy Crush?
Yeah, what is the devs called? King. I don't understand why they weren't rolled in as a support studio for King. And there would be synergies there would be downsizing there, but I that baffles me. But just the sheer inverse of shutting down a studio that has won BAFTAs and was nominated, was one of the only Xbox games in a long time, besides some external stuff like Ori, to be nominated at the Game Awards, right? Well, I guess the Forza was, but they have arguably the one thing that made everyone ecstatic last year about the brand. I can't imagine why you would close that. It just doesn't make sense. With Arkane Austin, literally a year ago at this time, they straight up just went out to the press and said, we don't give up on games. We have no plans to close Arkane Austin, and even if the games don't come out the bat good, we're not going to give up on them. Well, guess what? They gave up on them. And again, that's a significant blow to their PR. That's a significant blow to their brand image, whether or not they have anything to do with it. And it literally looks like they looked at a spreadsheet of costs and savings and didn't actually consider the bigger picture of what this would do to their brand image, which is a very Microsoft thing to do, which does lead me to believe it was highly induced by Amy Hood and Satya Nadella and at all. But it goes to show that Microsoft is excellent at looking at data, but not understanding what the data is going to tell them and not looking at data in context of other data. But yeah, Arkane Austin, we don't give up on games. No plans to close Arkane Austin because of Redfall, and they basically closed Arkane Austin because of Redfall. And to mention briefly with Redfall, the fact that they're basically not going to give refunds for the DLC, they're going to give something of equal cost and value. That's kind of fucked. Because you advertised a product and you sold the product, and people aren't going to get that product, the Hero Pass. I would expect at minimum store credit. So I kind of hope that, because we don't know all of the details on that store credit will be something that people can choose. But if it's not, I will be livid, because that's fucked. You straight up sold something that you're not delivering on. Give people their money back. And for Roundhouse, they broke the promise of creative freedom, that Microsoft buys studios to give them creative freedom to make the games that they want to make, and now they're basically being sent to Elder Scrolls Online prison. Now, Roundhouse got off the best here, mind you, because they still exist. These people still have jobs, and they should be very great. Like should be happy for that.
Do we know what they were working on?
We don't. We don't, and we never will. Well, we probably will eventually. Like eventually there will be a report, like probably a Jason Schreier report that will come out, and we'll list exactly what they were working on, things like that. Right now, they had been supporting. They did some support work for Starfield, and they did some support work for Redfall, which is very common at Bethesda. Like id Software did support for Starfield, and id Software did support for Redfall. Like the Bethesda Studios doing a bit of support for each other is very common. But Roundhouse is never going to see that creative freedom that was promised to the studios at Microsoft. And for the fans, we're never going to get misfired. If games misfired and like we were excited for them and like things could be fixed in them, there's a chance that or a big chance that they won't get fixed now. Like that's the precedent that's being set here. And it continues to build on Microsoft's inability to commit to anything. And again, this is not really Phil's fault. Well, in some ways it is, because I'm sure he pushed for the Activision Blizzard deal in the first place, which caused the tighter scrutiny from the Microsoft executives to come down upon the division, because they gave them $69 billion to purchase a single, a publishing entity. But it's these kind of things that make me, that, when they say a year ago that Redfall and is going to get fixed and things like that, and that we want to invest more into Tango Gameworks and things like that, that a year from now, are we going to find out that what they told us about the Xbox hardware is now no longer the case? Are we going to find out that something that they show us at this showcase is no longer going to happen because they're going to shutter the studio? It sets the precedent that whatever they tell you, you have to question, because they're not sticking to any of it. And it's what I have been harping on for like 2 years now, is that they need to stick to things. And now with corporate Microsoft coming in, it's going to be even harder for them to stick to the things that they commit to the fans. Luckily, the one thing that even corporate Microsoft is keeping to, and I will say this, that there was like one little beacon of good that we got, or not good, but that like at least knowledge that is good for a consumer in the ecosystem, is that the whole slate of games is still coming to Game Pass, including Activision. Now, I do have to question if we're going to get additional tiers and things are going to be on other tiers, but at least everything's still going to launch in some shape or form onto a Game Pass subscription, and they are that, because that's the one fundamental. When people say that like, oh, Game Pass has failed because of this, I do have to push back and say Game Pass is the one thing, the singular thing that Microsoft has been absolutely consistent in, like this whole time. Like no matter the multi-platform strategy, no matter the the questions about Call of Duty, no matter this, that, or the other thing. The one thing is day one Game Pass is like they're consistent, and I don't know if that's because they literally know they can't break day one Game Pass without absolutely shuttering their brand, or if it is that it is highly, highly, highly successful for them. I think it's a little bit of both.
I wonder.
I think,
not to interrupt. I just quickly, I wonder if they play around more with Game Pass, and because I don't know if they're hitting the numbers that they would like to at this point. I know it's done very well. But I do wonder if they will tinker with it and, for example, add a new tier with... I know that, like, for example, like, there's a lot of talk about ads and, like, these different passes, for example, right?
I think it's very, 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 very plausible that we're going to see a lot of experimentation with Game Pass. And I think Call of Duty 2024 is going to be the grand experiment to see if they can actually get the thing to fucking grow again.
Because...
Or if they can't.
If they want to hit, like, again, we're talking about, like, 1 billion, for example, or, like, I'm talking about people, right? Like, I'm talking about, like, reaching, like, the audiences that the numbers that they want, and it would have to be something like that. I know that they have all the ambitions with mobile as well, and I'm just kind of curious where they play with, again, ad support, plus maybe some kind of free-to-play games, plus including those single-player games in that as well.
Yeah, I don't want to... I think we'll know sooner rather than later about that stuff. I think there's going to be an announcement in June. But that is the one consistent. At least they at least have one pillar that they are consistent with, and that is Game Pass. And I don't know if anyone here knows Daniel McGee. He's one of the co-hosts with Infinite Umbra on The Fix. He said something very, 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 very poignant that I wanted to bring up here, and it's that he hopes that the Xbox executives are having trouble sleeping at night, and not out of malice, but that would let him know that they're human, because everything has seemed to have shifted to a completely corporate stance. And IGN actually, for once, ran a fairly decent article interviewing current and former Microsoft higher-ups and executives and people who are working at Xbox currently and in the past. And they said this statement that has confused some people, and that it's that Xbox is now Microsoft Gaming, and a lot of people are taking that, well, duh, because that's literally what it's been for 3 years, and that is, well, duh, that's what it's been for 3 years. But I think the point of that statement is that the Microsoft culture is winning out at Xbox, or is winning out in the division and subsuming the Xbox culture, which is kind of the opposite of what all of us hoped for, right? We hoped that the Xbox culture would move out and kind of move over to ZeniMax and move over to Activision Blizzard and change maybe not necessarily change the culture at ZeniMax. I don't think the culture necessarily needed changing there, but the culture at Activision and Blizzard certainly needed change. I think we can all agree with how toxic and awful that it was there in the past, that hopefully the changes would happen there. But it seems that everything is being subsumed by Microsoft's corporate culture, which is not something you want to happen in a creative environment in the slightest. Because that is one of the fundamental differences about games, and that's one of the things that shareholders at Microsoft aren't going to understand about games, is that they are a creative process that takes a long freaking time. Like, both Oris, upon doing some brief research in between while MLD was going, both Oris took at least 4 years. It may have been 5 for Will and the Wisps. The most accurate count that we can get is that it was 4, because it was announced 3 years before it came out.
I mean, I am understandable to, again, certain lengths to games, but, I mean, we've seen all across Xbox Studios. I mean, you look at, again, Halo for 343 with Halo Infinite. I mean, they went, 6-7 years? You have Turn 10, they took a little longer as well. And again, even a few guys on the show here, I played it and I didn't feel as good as what the previous Forza Motorsport was, to be honest with you. I didn't see a big improvement. And again, I'm not going carte blanche across all of Xbox Studios, but in a way, I do understand, like, again, the trimming of certain things, especially if, like, certain thresholds aren't being met, deadlines,
Sure.
and so on. Like, again, I'm not, again, like, I'm for the little guy. I like, I like all the artists, all the designers, and so on. Like, again, I do understand, and I want certain visions to be held. But I do understand, to a certain degree, also certain thresholds that corporate has to meet as well.
Right, and and I think everyone is correct in saying if Tango hadn't been here, the calculus for the complaints would have been different, because it would have been more like I said this on the fix, and I'm saying it here too. I would have been able to I was able to rationalize the whole thing until I read the words Tango Gameworks, and then it didn't make sense, because if it had been purely by meritocracy, Alpha Dogs, from what I understand, Doom, what was Mighty Doom, I believe, was the game that they released on
That's
on
correct.
phones.
Yeah.
Well,
It didn't do very well, and it, like critically or financially, it just didn't do well, right? And it, I would have been frustrated with the whole Redfall not being completed and things like that, but like this wouldn't have been nearly. It would have made sense, because it would have been by meritocracy. The studio just didn't do well, and their plans to fix the game just wouldn't have been shaping up, and that could have been rationalized away. I wouldn't have been happy about it, but I wouldn't have been as angry as I am now. And I think what's even more frustrating is more money was spent on buybacks literally last quarter, stock buybacks by Microsoft, than the entire cost of the ZeniMax division. And because, like, this is the thing. Games as an investment for companies are a medium-term investment. They are not a short-term investment. Like, even Activision Blizzard is not a short-term, like, it's not going to return in short time. It's not going to return that $69 billion in short time. The value does not allow for that. Call of Duty will begin to return great dividends for them, and it already has. But it's not going to pay for itself until the medium term, period. It is not a business that can do that. And to see executives treating companies that do need invested in for that medium term is painful. And we just went through 2 years of dry spells with games being released. We had 2020, which was very dry. We had 2022, which was very dry. And it's going to be interesting to see in 5 years if there are gaps that could have been filled by the games that because Tango was pitching Hi-Fi Rush 2, and Arkane Austin was pitching a return to roots immersive sim game, such as another Dishonored. They hadn't actually decided on a game, but like another Dishonored was brought up as a potential for the type of immersive sim they wanted to do. And it'll be really interesting in 5 years if there is an open patch that could have been filled, and they just don't have it. Well, they would have. They would have if they had invested in the medium term. And that's something I have been saying basically every time we bring up layoffs here on this show, is that outside of Embracer, which fucked itself because it spent money it didn't have, most of these companies are looking to make short-term profits to basically reducing their cost to create the illusion of a profit. It's not the illusion of profit. It is profit. The illusion of growth. When they're not actually growing, they're just firing off devs that they probably will end up needing again. And Microsoft is in a position where it could easily transition itself and do the medium-term investment that's now required. They made $26 billion in profit last year. In profit. Right? And they are in the position as a company to make these moves. And again, I can't fault them for necessarily closing Arkane Austin. They did fail. It is ridiculous that it in the industry, like, one failure seals your fate as a studio, but that's where we are. But it is wild to me that they are making closures not based on meritocracy in this case. And why should any dev at Xbox feel secure? And that's a huge thing, because if you're not feeling secure, you may end up looking for jobs somewhere else. You may not end up doing your best work, because why would you do your best work when tomorrow you may not have a job? And that's a problem throughout the industry. This is not exclusive to Microsoft. But all of the devs that were acquired, and now that it's cutting season, are definitely going to be feeling this. And that's not something you can just ignore. It's something that is also true at PlayStation. It's something that is also true at basically everyone that's not Nintendo, because Nintendo doesn't really attempts, even in its worst hours, such as the Wii U, to not do layoffs, because they fundamentally understand that laying people off typically just causes worse products to be made.
Mm-hmm.
And you can literally see the results of them not doing that in the Switch.
I mean, I will say that, didn't Iwata take even like a pay cut?
Yeah,
too?
Iwata took a huge pay cut for years.
Yeah, I will say that.
Until they were back on top. Because he fundamentally understands what it takes to make games, and that's largely because Nintendo itself is a Japanese company, which has a huge focus on respecting work, right? Japan's work ethic is wild compared to ours. And it also has to do with Nintendo is holistically, they are the only first party in the console space that is holistically and only a gaming company, right? Sony is not holistically and only a gaming company. They are also a movie, picture, TV, film. They also make cameras, right? They
Music
also
industry,
are a music label.
Yeah.
They fund their executives are not fundamentally in tune with gaming. And that's part of the reason why Nintendo does things very differently than other companies, because they can focus on exclusively what makes sense for a video game industry. And that is something that Satya Nadella and Amy Hood and the rest are coming in, and they are going to fuck up at Xbox for a while. I fear for July, because July is likely when you'll see the next round of this. Now, granted, if the public perception continues to sour, they may hold off on doing it until a couple quarters from now. Why? Because doing more can cost more than the savings they'll make. And that is something I think they are going to see a little bit. Is that I especially think that whatever pittance of money in the pile that Microsoft is saving by closing down Tango was not worth closing down Tango. They're gonna be feeling that in interviews. They're gonna be feeling that through the showcase, because I have said for a while that at this showcase, unfortunately, I haven't had the chance to say it on this show, but at the showcase, I had been previously saying was going to be subsumed with the question of, well, where's this game going to end up actually being, right? Well, now it's going to be, well, where is this game going to end up actually being? Or is this game even going to come out? Or is this studio going to exist in 2 years? Like, am I going to get excited for this game, play it, and get hyped for a sequel, and then it get closed? Like, that's the kind of tone that they are setting going into a showcase in a month. And you're going to see it. You may not like it. You may hate it as Xbox fans. You are going to see these headlines. I will predict it right now. You will see these headlines at the show. And to an extent, they are exceptionally deserved, because they closed down an award-winning studio that won awards last year. Like, it is fundamentally, it was a spreadsheet move made by people who didn't really understand the division, right? It was made by the Amy Hoods. And that is going to cause problems for their brand image for a long time.
I mean, I will
People
say,
aren't going to forget this.
I will say, I mean, I will agree that the timing of it's
really bad.
Is not great. But at the same time, I mean, I'm not disagreeing to an extent, but at the same time, I mean, they could have an awesome show. They could show off a lot of stuff. And people might. I mean, I won't say they'll forget, but I'm just saying there's also the equal opportunity that they could knock it out of the park with.
There's a few things that could end up really helping them if they have a handheld ready to show, and they show it at this showcase. They may be able to get people to forget everything. If they have something truly revolutionary for gaming prepared for this showcase that can blow people away, I think they have a chance to get people to forget this. Right? I already thought it was going to be pretty bad with the multi-platform stuff, with basically every outlet is going to be asking the question, is this going to be on PlayStation? Right? That is going to happen. Is this going to be on Nintendo? That's going to happen. And that was a narrative I thought they were already going to have trouble shifting away from, because it's not even just a stupid thing. There are people, I have friends who they don't want to buy an Xbox, right? They play on PlayStation, they play on Nintendo, and they're going to be asking, is this game going to be on X or Y? And that's not of any fault of their own. They bought the one console like most people do, right? It's only the truly enfranchised, like most of us on the panel. I mean, Dots doesn't even own a console, but it's like
not true. I do own a console.
Okay, you don't own a modern console. Well, I guess you own a Switch.
It's an Xbox One.
All right, it's not a modern console. He got it cheaper because it had Fallout 76 than the version that didn't have Fallout 76.
Fallout 76
that was back when the game was bad. But yeah. Like just fundamentally, like those people that are like the usual, they buy one console, maybe they buy one console plus the Nintendo handheld, which happens to be the other console, but you know, and they're like one of our personal friends, you know, she adored Hi-Fi Rush, and she was actually excited for more Xbox stuff coming to PlayStation. And I can't blame her. I would be excited too, right? Mm-hmm. And so the articles being written about games coming to other consoles aren't just for like people will be like, oh, they're for negative Xbox looks. No, there are genuine people who only own a PlayStation who are now excited that they're going to maybe be able to get played to play games that previously you would never imagine would come to their console. And they're already going to be fighting that narrative, and now they're going to be fighting the narrative of, is this studio going to exist after they release this game? And I think that really sucks, because it takes a lot of the wind out of what should be something very exciting. Something that literally before Monday I was super excited for. And I'm still excited to see the games, and I'm still going to play all the games. And for people who are like, oh my god, he's so mad at Xbox, he must hate Xbox and be throwing it in the trash. No, I'm still basically using it as my primary machine, though I am considering buying more of my third-party stuff else probably on my PC. I have turned my PlayStation on, besides updates, I have turned it on for a total of 1 hour this entire year. It's just, it becomes flabbergasting because I don't want to lose the platform that has all of my digital licenses. And they keep making moves that are like Sideshow Bob stepping on rakes. Anyone know that scene where Sideshow Bob keeps stepping on the rakes in The Simpsons? He goes, dude, right? Yep. This is them right now. And it's not all it's not all just on the Microsoft executive team, or the Xbox executive team. There is a lot of this on the Microsoft executive team that's being pushed onto them. Though I do feel that if they can't adequately describe how they're going to absolutely destroy their PR before a massive showcase, then they're not really fighting hard enough. There's no way that this needed to happen in May. There's no reason that this needed to happen right now. This could have happened in 6 months. And no one would have known. They could have easily made the argument, push it to September when we're releasing our awesome games, and we can and we'll do them a couple at a time, right? We'll close a couple studios at a time. Maybe we can convince you to keep one or two of them over that time. But lay it out over time. Make it so that we can bury this news with good news, right? It's just a minefield of PR disaster.
Again, I understand the sentiments.
And Sarah's non-answer was hilarious. If you listen to it, it doesn't make sense. It is incoherent executive speech.
I will agree. I went over it a few times.
I genuinely cannot understand what she is trying to say, let alone...
I have a feeling it was fed to her. I don't understand the response myself.
It makes no sense. And obviously this decision had to have happened within like the last month. Because She literally just wished them like 2 months ago. Many more years. Which is either the biggest PR blunder that she has ever made and the greatest miscalculation of all time. Or this decision was made after that. And like the discussions hadn't even started, because she wouldn't have said anything like that had the discussions been taking place. Because I guarantee, as one of the like uppermost executives within the within Microsoft Gaming, she would have been in on this meeting to close studios. There's no shot she wasn't. There's no shot Phil wasn't. No shot Matt Booty. Well, Matt Booty made the announcement, so obviously he was. But no shot these people weren't. And so it also feels like a rushed decision so that they could get something out after the Microsoft earnings report.
Oh, yeah.
One last thing. There are two short last things. I encourage everyone to go and buy a limited run physical edition of Hi-Fi Rush. Not to show support or anything like that, but simply because without Tango Gameworks there to truly fight for the relicensing, because of how much licensed music was used in it, there is a large chance that, similar to the Forza games that get delicensed because of how many car licenses they'd have to keep up with, that this game could eventually get delisted forever. So I would highly, highly suggest that buy a physical now, so that 10 years in the future, whenever the licenses would run out, you still have a copy. I would highly encourage that, because of the unique circumstances of this game. It's also really funny that one of Hi-Fi Rush's villains, the CFO, is legitimately, I don't care about cash and all I care about is profits. Like, Hi-Fi Rush was literally a game about evil corporations losing the sight on like what it means to be a good business and putting profits and power over just offering a good service. And that's kind of what we see here today. Like, it's literally an allegory for what we're seeing. And I thought that was very very humorous.
Mm-hmm. All right, thank you very much for your insight there, Crusader. Dots, I know you have been waiting exceptionally very patiently. I mean, I would love to have you close us off here. Again, what are your thoughts on all this?
Yeah, I mean, it's 11:14, and a lot of you guys hit a lot of the big points, so I'll try to keep mine a bit brief, but I do have some points I wanted to make. For one, like, the biggest thing I saw out of this, and that kind of hit me, whether or not it's like how true it is like, I saw that. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that image, and it's like a cow looking down like two hallways, but they both lead to the exact same place, and it's like Arkane making a poor game of Redfall, and then Tango making a great game of Hi-Fi Rush, and they both lead to the same place of they both get shut down. And it's simple as a stupid little meme picture as it was. It's like that. I hate that that's a precedent that it seems like that has been set, at least through this situation of what is it that keeps them alive if it's not success and it's not failure. Going back to what Grimez was saying, actually, that I was really resonating with was the fact that why, like, I don't think companies failing isn't something that should be a one and done, because like, you learn more from failures than you do successes. That is like a whole, that is just true for so many different things. Like, I mean, as simple as like playing a video game. Like, if I play Halo, or I play Battlefield, or hell, if I play Magic the Gathering, any game I play, I learn more when I lose than when I win. Because if I win, I'm like, okay, I'm just repeat the same thing, even if it was mediocre, because I won. Versus, I lost. How do I get better at this? So I really, I agree with Grimez on that. It's like, yeah, we should, failure is not something that should be, brutally punished, especially if it's like a first time failing. If you fail 10 times, or hell, I mean, you can go a little lower, 5 times, I don't know, gaming industry with how much money's on the line, a couple failures, but like, throwing Redfall as like one of the biggest blunders, it's but they have that backing with Microsoft. It wasn't like a Gollum where I don't remember what that studio's name was, but like the Gollum game came out, it super failed, and the studio shut itself down, to my knowledge, because of how big it was. But they didn't have the backing support of, say, like Microsoft or Sony. So now we have the thing of, okay, Redfall fails once, so cut Arkane out of the picture. For just the one failure, and then Tango puts out Hi-Fi Rush, biggest success for like that, on top of like you said, Invader, how it's one of their only footings in Japan. They succeed so well, shut it down. What's the precedent being set here? Like, it worries me that obviously we can't see it, but like something's going on behind closed doors that we're unaware of, that is causing this to be more of an issue than like we are aware of, or something along those lines. I had another point I was gonna make, but no. So like that. Oh yeah. Okay. That was the other, I remembered what I was gonna say. I do not think this is like I don't want to say that this is like, oh, the end of my support for Microsoft. I know that that's a concern for people. That's like, oh, like Crusader was saying, this, their PR and their like, how much we can trust these guys is, it's low. Like, can we trust them to make the right calls in the future? I don't want to say that's not, it's going to be impossible. Only for the sheer fact that, like, very recently, a certain company making a certain game called Destiny 2 had a massive layoff, and one of those massive layoff individuals is Michael Salvatore. The man who made some of the best video game music for both Halo and Destiny. And so Bungie makes this layoff, and this was on the thing that me and Crusader were saying, you know what, fuck Bungie. They screwed over, they laid off one of the best musician, like orchestral minds of our time for games like Destiny and Halo. Like, why should we keep supporting Bungie? But then just watch now. Cornered Bungie's best Bungie. We've made that meme. We're looking at one of the biggest comebacks for Destiny that me and Crusader have been excited for nonstop. It's been fun, great content. We're looking forward to the next big DLC. So as much as I hold anger and resentment for the choices made by Microsoft, this doesn't mean, oh, I'm no longer a Microsoft fan. I think they're going to bounce back. We're going to hold this black mark on them. Like, why did you get rid of Tango? Like, that makes no sense. Bungie, why? I'm still upset at Bungie. Why'd you get rid of Michael Salvatore? But they bounced back. Destiny's in an amazing spot right now. Racking up the numbers, putting out old content for free, keeping a lot of it free, bringing back players out the wazoo. And, they, even though they made a decision we hated, they've bounced back. I think Microsoft can do the same. I don't think this is the end of Microsoft, that this is their royal fuck up that has no return from. I think that we have this is a bad decision to most of us. I think overall, universally, most of us think that this is a dumb decision, but that doesn't mean that it's all over now. This doesn't mean this is the end. We need to be a little patient and see what does cornered Microsoft do. Because if cornered Bungie's best Bungie, what will Microsoft do when they're cornered? they're gonna get, they're gonna have the media all over them. They're gonna, they have. When's the showcase coming out that you guys were discussing?
I think it's the 9th. I could be
Okay,
mistaken, but it's around
the
there.
9th of June.
Yeah.
Okay, so like, maybe, maybe, um, maybe Crusader has activated the monkey's paw and a finger curls, and we get our handheld console from Microsoft. Who knows? But like, I know that we've had parties, concerned that all this anger has pushed us away from being Microsoft fans. I don't think so. I think that this passion for what we are and our opinions of the matter make us the best Microsoft fans, because I don't think anyone on the panel here is going to be jumping ship at any time soon. Like, and yeah, sure, I might be the least active on the Xbox console base, but I'm not going to jump ship. I'm not going to be like, oh, I'd rather get a PS5 because this is horrendous. No, if I actually decide to get like a Series X, I would still pick that over a PS5 personally. But no, this isn't a jump ship situation, but this is a raise your voices, let them know your displeasure, and continue to be Microsoft fans, to continue to be Xbox fans, because we are upset because we are fans. If we weren't fans, we wouldn't be upset because we wouldn't care. But everyone who's talked, it seems to care. So, I think that the concern of, who we are, our identity remains the same. And so now we need to cautiously watch for the future of their decisions. Be it that, Phil and Sarah, whether or not they, actually have control anymore is an unknown at the moment, I guess. But like, we have to cautiously watch, see what the next move is, because they're going to probably do something that says, hey, we screwed up. Here's this really big thing to make you forget about the screw up. And maybe it'll play out like Bungie and it will succeed. Or other ones will be like, you know what? We really do like this new big thing you threw for us. We haven't forgotten what you did to Tango, but you're still. We'll see that all that money that you're saving from those studios is actually going to something that we want. And as as much as it still sucks that we got rid of Tango and those other studios, it's not the end of the world. It's not the end of Microsoft. I wish I kind of had more of an inside understanding of why they made these choices. Help us analyze it. Maybe there'll be some leaks in the future, more, emails revealed or whatever. Obviously, in that interview, getting asked that question, she was, staggered and whatnot. A woman of her position, I feel like, should have known what to say, or like at least, but I don't know. It sounded almost at the level of, a politician being a question that they didn't want to answer, and then they jump around it.
Well, I mean, really, they speak from the same, like it's similar talk,
Yeah. I mean, CEO, politician, like, I'm only saying that because we're in our 4-year stretch and we have another presidential election coming this year, so we're gonna be hearing it all the time. But like, the fact that question was either not axed out of the interview, I am happy they allowed the question to be asked, even though the result of it was, he who you look stupid because you don't know how to answer it, or at least a lot of people saying that kind of stuff on Twitter, whatever. But I'm hoping for a good future. I'm hoping that our faith in Microsoft is not completely it's shaken, not destroyed. But that, once again, that is proof that we are Microsoft fans, because we are passionate about this. we do care about this, and most importantly, we want Microsoft to succeed. We want to see the reasons why they're making these decisions. We want to see, I want them to make hard decisions, not stupid decisions. I want to be like, oh, you made the decision because it was a hard decision, but it was worth it in the end. At the moment, we only see, why'd you make that stupid decision? And whether it be more insight or whatnot, I do hope that, we can look upon this in the future and be like, I don't think there's an excuse of, this having the best good reason, but I still would feel like, hey, we deserve something out of this that isn't just, oh, we needed to save money, let's cut out some, loose end, at least what we think is loose ends. I want to see a result. I want to see a handheld console. I want to see, we've consolidated more into these other studios, and now they're going to be dropping bangers left and right. I want to see, I want to see 343 get some more momentum, and not, Crusader saying that their numbers right now are very low. I want to see that change. I want to see them pull out something great.
But how do you know that because of the shift? I don't know. Maybe it was bloated before, and now I don't know. Maybe they're able to. Maybe that they're a little more condensed. They're able to focus more. They're not as spread out.
The peanut butter on too little bread analogy and whatnot. That's the thing. That's the thing I hate about this all, is that it's so much speculation, and we're relying on leaks or delayed information on these decisions, and unfortunately that's what we're stuck with until if something gets released we talk about next Sunday or whatever. But
no, Xbox will be buying Sega next Sunday, so just so you know.
I mean,
let's go.
God, if the whole purpose of buying studios, shutting them down, and then buying a different, another one is I don't know. I mean, I think Xbox owning Sonic the Hedgehog would be freaking insane, but that's a whole different issue, and that's a whole different
Truth
Sunday.
be told, I really don't want them to buy anybody right now. I want them to just focus.
I agree.
I'm
on the same boat.
I've kind of had this sentiment. I've shared it a little while, except when it came to maybe getting a Japanese studio or an Eastern studio. But now I just kind of want them to settle on what, more focus on their actual production pipeline right now and getting all their studios where they want them to be and so on.
I feel like once Xbox gets their ducks in a row and they're sustainable with what they got, then they can resume further acquisitions. Because they're still behind Tencent, and I think their goal is to be bigger than Tencent, to be the biggest publisher in gaming. But right now, they do have to course correct, because otherwise, if they just keep going, then it will be like Embracer. And nobody wants that.
I mean, we'll all applaud tomorrow if they announce they're buying Square. So, I mean, come on. Because that is games for us that we don't have.
Oh man, that.
Well,
I mean,
Japan wouldn't let that happen.
Oh, Sony fans would be just.
You say that, but America has let them buy Blizzard, so Activision Blizzard. So
I don't know. I mean,
and Square's pretty small from that point of view, but
maybe.
What I will say is people freaking out about, because Doom just got announced. They're like, "Oh no, it might get closed down." I'm like, "Let's live in reality." It has their tech, so they're very valuable in that sense. Also, financially, their games have done great. So let's not go all the way.
But
I just saw somebody say that, and I'm just like, for any studio can get shut down. Heck, Naughty Dog, if their games start being bangers and they were just, whatever it is, you have to critically hit, but you also have to financially hit, because we all saw what happened with Days Gone. Critically, they were like, nah, this ain't it, and that's why they're not making another Days Gone. They're doing a new IP. So financially, you gotta you got to hit. You could, like, Hellblade could be a 90, but if not a single soul plays it, that 90 doesn't mean anything. So you have to do both. Like, you have to land the plane. It has to be a good game, and you got to get people to play it. So, but that's with any dev. So, across the board.
I will be very curious to see how Hellblade 2 does, though, because again, I will be interested in the reviews and what the comments are just from everyone about it. Because again, Hellblade is it's a different kind of game. I like it, but it's not for everyone, and that's why I'm very curious to see the reception for it.
Neither was Hi-Fi Rush, but it got 90s, right? So.
Do you guys think that this whole drama will affect the Hellblade reviewer score? Because I can see scenarios in which some reviewers give it a bad score as an FU to Microsoft.
Yeah, that'd be incredibly petty.
Well, then they're worse than Microsoft, because then them doing that knows that puts people's jobs on the line as well.
Remember,
I don't know why, Grimes. I thought you were gonna say, I wonder how this is gonna affect the trout population. I don't know why that just came to my mind.
I mean, I will say though, and that is funny, that again, Hellblade, the original one, was again exclusive, like it was like limited to the PlayStation 4. I remember when it came out at first. Yeah. At first, right? So again, it was highly touted by PlayStation and PlayStation guys and so on and so forth. I don't know if this affects it per se, this news, because most people don't pay attention to this news. But what most people will see if they're into gaming and they see it pop up on their dashboard, oh, Hellblade 2, that's interesting. I might have heard about that. Do I have Game Pass? Oh yeah, it's in Game Pass. I'll just be curious again because again, we don't know exactly what like the numbers will be, how it's sold per se. But I'll be curious to see how, again, engagement and downloads versus, again, the critical reception are. And I guess, I don't know, I guess we'll go from there and see how we'll just have to gauge it like that.
You think if it's a 90, this news kind of gets somewhat brushed away?
I think we'll get a 90.
Because that's not Hi-Fi Rush. It's a AAA, at least visually,
visually,
it's a AA game that looks like a AAA game.
Yes, it's deceiving. That's why
it's going to give you a 10-hour experience, same as Halo, AAA. From that point of view. But
it's interesting. As much as I liked Hellblade 1, the Metacritic is only 81, which is I think lower than what I thought it would be. I feel like this one would land somewhere maybe 84 to 87, and then that's me being like somewhat of a pessimist. Ideally, I like it to get like high 80s, maybe a 90.
Okay, I'll be very curious because it releases. Actually, sorry, I thought it was next week. I guess it's the week after. I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Yeah, that's correct. But I am keeping an eye on Hellblade 2 for sure, because it is. It's a visually striking game. They put a lot of effort into it. But I also know that it's a very focused game as well. It's a very focused kind of game. So, again, I'll be very curious how...
It was the Series X flagship title when they announced the console, so...
Yes.
Even though if it's $40, it's like the... it's supposed to be, at least visually, probably the best-looking game we have yet to see in this console generation. That's what it's kind of being touted as.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hopefully it lands the plane and the combat's even better than before. And I think someone did do a side-by-side where like the early showings we saw and now some of the recent footage has been bumped up quite a bit, not downgraded. So
yeah, no, it does look no. Visually, like details-wise and everything, it looks solid, but again, very curious. I remember the first game. I liked it. But I'm just very curious to see how it plays and where it takes off from the first one. But yeah, guys, I'm taking a look at the time. Dots, anything else you wanted to say?
Congrats on the mobile store.
Yeah.
We'll see where that goes. I mean, I guess they have Activision Blizzard for a reason, so we'll see what happens there. But I don't really have much else to comment on that.
All right, that's fair. Yeah, I guess again, not a whole lot to say about like the mobile storefront, but it is interesting that it was brought up, and I guess I don't know, they seem pretty excited about it, and they're gonna be bypassing like, because it's web based, it can be browser based, like they can ignore Apple and Google's different cuts into what gets purchased, which is very clever, and I'll be curious to see how it goes. But I'm assuming we'll learn a lot more as the weeks go on. But yeah, guys, I think on that note, we'll call it quits for this one. I know it's getting a little lengthy, but honestly, I thought it was a really thorough discussion covering like all of the unfolding like Xbox and Bethesda studio closures and more. Really good talk tonight, different perspectives, and to everyone that joined in tonight, thank you for coming out. Very interesting discussions in the chat. If you enjoyed the banter, then please consider leaving a like, subbing to the channel, and sharing out the show, as again I certainly do appreciate it. I'll move over to the outros. In case you guys didn't notice, Crusader had to dip early, but again, you know where to find him. He's available on Twitter for sure. His info is down below in the description. Dots, hey, good commentary tonight. Liked your thoughts. Where can everybody find you?
Yeah, another good Sunday night. You can find me at DotzRTS on the Twitter and on the Xbox Live. And yeah, no, I'm happy we got back. Bit of a rough topic week, but I mean, I said this a while ago. I'm like, hey, I'm glad we're not talking about layoffs that much, and then this happens. But like I said, I have hope that there'll be a comeback from this. Only time will tell, and I think we'll just cautiously wait and watch, and I think we might be surprised. Who knows? So.
Indeed. Eric Shockley, buddy. Hey, great discussion from you tonight as well. Again, I love the way that you let us off. Where can everybody follow you at?
Yeah,
Shock
as always,
Father.
you can find me at Shock Nero on Twitter, Easy Shock on Xbox Live. But yeah, good show tonight. Good banter. That was fun. So, but everybody have a good night, and yeah, good show.
Totally. Grimes, you're next. Again, I thought you had some really good input from your end. Where can all these fine people find you?
Yeah, great chat as always. And yeah, you can find me on Twitter at FakeMayhemOG.
All right, short and sweet. I like it. GeneralMLD. Again, I thought you had a lot of really good things to add to the conversation tonight, as per usual. Where can all these wonderful people follow you?
Yeah, you guys can find me at MLD Ghost on Twitter X, gamertag GhostMLD. And, well, I mean, this news isn't the best to discuss, but I feel like Hellblade will impress. It'll be here before we know it, as well as the June showcase. And I definitely think that Xbox still has a lot of good days ahead of it. So, looking forward to the next one.
Of course. And, of course, I'm Invader. You guys can find my content on YouTube at Invader Gaming. Again, yeah, pretty good show, despite the ugly news the past week. We do have a lot to look forward to very soon from, again, what others are saying, Hellblade 2's near release, and, Xbox showcase around the corner. Plus, of course, hey, there's all kinds of good games, interesting games, new games getting released. I mean, hey, we're in May, and there's all kinds of stuff being released. I know that there's a lot of stuff on my radar, but yeah, you guys, we will see you here on the next one. Who knows what next week will bring. Later.